The film you are about to see is the account of a tragedy which befell a group of over 18,000 YouTube subscribers, but in particular, Jacob Fox and his invalid kitty, Ichigo. What makes this so sad is that they were so incredibly good looking. But even if they had lived long and unattractive lives, they could never have imagined experiencing anything as horrific and completely sickening as they had seen that day. Simply listening to a YouTube video became an awful nightmare. The events of this video were to lead to finding one of the most sickening crimes in American history. The Killer Orange Cat Question and Answer video. Hey all, and welcome to my second Q&A video. I had intended on getting this out yesterday, but I was pretty unhappy with the finished product. So I rewrote it, and I think this is much better. Just a few things though before I get to the questions. First, I want to thank everyone who submitted questions. I truly appreciate it, and I will do my best to answer them all. Second, I will be showing the questions on screen, cut and pasted directly from the comment section of the video. I probably won't attempt to read off all the names because I have this severe anxiety that I'll pronounce something wrong. So please don't get offended if I don't read your name. Your question will be on screen. First off, we have a question about my age from Ariana. As you can see, there was also a little discussion about it. I am actually surprised only one person asked, though. I do get this question very often. However, as usual, I am going to decline to answer it, though. I tend not to give my age out, not because I think people will think I'm too old or too young, but it's because it doesn't tell you much of anything about me. People get preconceived notions about people based on age, whether they intend to or not. So, I appreciate the discussion, but this one I'll just have to be keeping to myself. Now, Terratopia would like to know if the cats are keeping me hostage. The answer to that question is no. The cats definitely know who is in charge here. I am here of my own free will and can leave any time. Definitely do not call the authorities. Definitely do not send them to my home. And definitely do not tell them to bring tear gas. War Dog Man asked, do you live with the Killer Orange Cat? If so, how? Do you find people for them to kill, so they don't kill you? Or are you their leader? Are all orange cats killers? Wait, I have an orange cat. Please help. Again, it's important to know that the answer is no. All orange cats are not killers. They know we are in charge. Definitely do not call the authorities. Definitely do not send them to War Dog Man's house. And definitely do not bring the tainted catnip. Joni Underwood would like to know what my favorite food is. Well, undoubtedly, my favorite food is sushi, and my favorite place to get it is a kaiten sushi restaurant in Rolling Meadows, Illinois, called the Sushi Station. If you are not familiar with kaiten sushi, it's a restaurant with a bar and a conveyor belt. The conveyor belt is filled with plates of sushi. You just reach in and grab the sushi you want and pay based off the color of the plate. I could really eat sushi all day. The next question is, you've read a ton of scary stories on your page, but do you have a personal favorite? I really don't know if I have a favorite. However, the story that was the most fun for me to record has to be Haunted by My Shadow. It gave me a chance to do a little creative voice acting, and I really enjoyed the story. I don't tend to watch my own videos, but I do check this one out every so often. Now let's see, what is your favorite TV show? Well, of all time, my favorite TV show was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I never watched it when it was on, but when I was having a rough time, I bought a few box sets. The show made me feel better, and I fell instantly in love with it. Since then, I've watched it dozens of times and probably have it memorized. What's the very first cartoon I ever watched? You know, I don't really know. My earliest memory is an anime I watched when I lived in Italy, and it was called the Shogun Warriors. I remember very little about it, but I do know it was a mecha anime. I also recall having some comic books of it. But yes, that's definitely the first cartoon I can recall watching. What do you think is the most annoying cliche from horror movies? Now, this question is easy. When a perfectly good car without any known problems just decides to stall when the victim is trying to get away from the killer. That one just really grinds my gears. I mean, a lot of horror cliches are easy enough to not care about. For example, when a person hides rather than runs away, or they walk towards a scary noise. In real life, people tend to act certain ways in stressful situations, and there's no telling what we would do unless we were in those situations. However, just give me a break with the car thing. At the very least, make the victim forget the keys and attempt to hotwire the car. But just having it stall at that time is pretty dumb. Do I watch anime? Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of anime. I've been watching it all my life, probably due to living in Italy where it was on quite a bit. I'll go into that more later, as I know there was another anime question on one of the slides. Where is Killer Red Cat? That is a very good question that I unfortunately don't have an answer for. However, if anyone finds him, please let me know. It's very, very important. Now, some of these other questions go together. What is my favorite genre of movies? Definitely horror movies. I've been a big, huge horror fan for as long as I can remember. As far as favorites, my favorite horror movie is The Evil Dead Part 2. But I watch everything from classic horror to current horror and horror from many different countries. I even love really bad horror films that get terrible reviews or panned by everybody. People say, oh, it's a waste of time to watch that video. Well, I'll still watch it. And what are your thoughts on reaction channels? Well, I don't want to offend anyone who enjoys them, but I don't really find them entertaining myself. However, I'm not going to disparage anyone who likes them. I've never been too concerned about what other people enjoy, and I don't let it have an effect on what I enjoy. I've watched a few reaction videos and I guess I just don't get it, but to each their own. In a few of them that I've seen, you can tell the people aren't really reacting to anything. It's all scripted beforehand because the reactions don't make sense. And as a psychologist, I tend to notice those things quite often. Now, finally for this slide, my thoughts on horror games. Well, I love horror video games. In fact, I kind of like them sometimes more than horror movies because I can often get immersed in a good, creepy horror game a lot easier than I can in a horror movie. I think it's because when you're controlling what's going on, you're a lot more invested in what happens. And sometimes I can get pretty startled from a good horror game jump scare. But just like horror movies, there are bad ones and there are good ones, and I like playing all of them. So, my friend Mortis Media and FaZe Lion want to know who my favorite wrestler is. In my opinion, the greatest pro wrestler who ever lived is Ric Flair. And he is undoubtedly my absolute favorite. I can watch his matches over and over again. Of course, Flair doesn't wrestle anymore, so my favorite current wrestler is the reigning IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kazuchika Okada. And this sort of ties into Mortis' other questions about Japanese, actually. He wants to know how and why I learned Japanese. Well, the main reason I learned Japanese was that I wanted to watch Japanese wrestling, and I wanted to understand the commentary. Well, how I learned it was, I took it as my language in college, and after that just stuck with it. I spend a bit of time every day watching Japanese television and reading in Japanese in order not to lose what I've learned. But in answer to Mortis' other question, I've not ever lived in Japan. I haven't even actually been to Japan yet. But I am hoping to go for a visit in the near future, and I'd love to spend a long time there if I enjoy it. Now here we're going to have some questions about things of mine that are favorites. What is your favorite creepypasta? Love your videos, by the way. Well, first, thank you very much. It honestly is always great to hear that, and it truly means a lot. In regards to my favorite creepypasta, I'm not really sure. I remember one that scared me a little when I listened to it a few years ago, but I can't recall the name of it. I think it was about a teenager who goes to visit relatives and stays in a guest house that I guess had really weak walls. Each night he witnessed some sort of creature out in the farm. I really don't remember the details or the name, but if anyone knows it, I'd love to listen to it again. Sexy Grandma would like to know what kind of cartoons I like and what kind of music. In regards to music, I am very eclectic. I honestly listen to everything from classical to country to folk to rock to techno. You name the genre, and I likely listen to it. In cartoons, my favorite cartoon of all time is Futurama. I like watching kids' cartoons still, though, sometimes. Bugs Bunny is great. I really have an affinity for Smurfs. Every year at Christmas, I watch Mickey's Christmas Carol and other Christmas-related cartoons. Oh, and my voice is the cat's meow and perfectly sexy. Aw, thank you very, very much. Valentin Galvin asks what my favorite paranormal phenomena or strange mystery is, and if any particular unexplained or creepy events have intrigued me. Well, I read a lot of these things, and even though I tend to be skeptical, I still enjoy reading about them. I find the ghost of the Tower of London to be really fascinating. But my favorite unexplained mystery has to be Jack the Ripper. I am a ripperologist, and I've spent a lot of time reading and watching documentaries about him. There's just something about an unsolved crime that is very fascinating to me. Now, personally, I don't think there ever was an actual Ripper. I think that there were several murders in an area that was actually well known for murders, and the press tied them together in order to sell newspapers. Simply looking into the history of Whitechapel, murders were extremely commonplace both before, during, and after the Ripper murders. Jake Lee would like to know my favorite scary story and scary movie. Well, my favorite scary movie is Evil Dead 2, as I mentioned. My favorite scary story is one that I read early in my channel's history. It's called The Thing in the Cellar, and it's written by David H. Keller. It's one of the few stories that truly scared me when I read it. If you haven't read it or watched my video, you should. It's really great. Ariel would like to know how I sleep at night with these scary stories and what my real name is. Well, my real name is Jacob Fox, and I sleep pretty easily, actually. I don't really scare very easily at all. Hell, I actually like being scared, and I really try to find videos and stories that will scare me. It unfortunately rarely happens, though. But when I do get scared, I tend to still sleep pretty easily. Honestly, though, if something scared me so badly that I couldn't sleep, I'd probably think it was pretty awesome. And moving on to the next slide, 93 Maija, I hope, would like to know if I can go bowling with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would I pick and who would win? This is a really good question. I'm very competitive and I like winning, so if I could pick anybody, I would pick Stephen Hawking, Stevie Wonder, and Betty White. Unfortunately, even though I'm obviously stacking the deck, Stephen Hawking, Stevie Wonder, or Betty White would probably still find a way to win. What punctuation mark describes my personality? A semicolon. Think about it. I know you will. If I had a theme song that played whenever I walked into a room full of people, what would it be? That's another easy one. Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. I mean, just imagine strutting into a room where that song was playing. I know you're imagining it. Don't deny it. What is my favorite word? Probably piñata. I don't know why, but whenever someone asks me a question, if I don't know the answer, I tend to answer it with piñata. It seems to work, and I kind of like the way the word feels when you say it. Now, Artem Moss would like to know if I could have a superpower, what would it be and why? My superpower would be pretty selfish, and it wouldn't save anyone's life. But if I could have any superpower, it would be that I could eat as much food as I wanted but never gain weight. I work out quite hard and quite often, and my life would be a lot easier if I could just keep eating. The Quartz Universe would like to know what my goals for 2017 are. Well, as some people know, I'm from Chicago. However, I've been living in Tennessee for a few years to help out my family. Nothing against Tennessee, but Chicago is my home, and I miss it terribly. I'm really upset that I wasn't there when the Cubs won the World Series. I'd like to be back there by the summer. That's major. I'd really like to continue to grow this channel as well, and I'll be working very, very hard to do that. And this coming winter, I want to take the Japanese language proficiency test, and I want to score in the highest bracket. And Carly Hart has some questions about Japanese, but I think I already answered most of those. I do plan on going to Japan pretty soon if I can, and I learned Japanese so I can understand Japanese wrestling commentary. Oathkeeper Brianna and Cesar Garcia want to know if I play video games and what my favorites are. I play a lot of video games, although I wish I had much more time to do it. I carry my Nintendo 3DS just about everywhere I go. I think my favorite video game of all time is Final Fantasy VI. I played it many, many times, and it never gets old for me. I play Monopoly a whole lot on my phone. Right now I'm enjoying Pokemon Sun, and I've also been playing the Pokemon trading card game online a lot. If you happen to play the Pokemon trading card game online and would like to play against me, just look up Killer Orange Cat, but just with one L. And yes, that will be me. Alright, this is from my friend of whom I cannot pronounce his YouTube name. I assume it's Mafuyu, but I refuse to ask him because I've never told him I couldn't pronounce it. Which horror movie villain would I let watch my children? And he means the kiddies. You know, I'll pick Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He and his family are cannibals, so it's likely he won't try and kill and eat my feline friends. I hope I get this right. Seraphus has a few questions for me. Do I have a favorite YouTube channel? Absolutely. My favorite channel is called Captain Disillusion. It's a channel that examines viral video hoaxes and debunks them. I absolutely love it. And do I like camping and outdoorsy stuff, or am I more of an indoor boy? There are plenty of outdoor things I enjoy. I like hiking, playing basketball, going for walks. But no, I don't like camping. I prefer to sleep at home in my own bed. There was a period of time when I was younger where I was homeless for a while, and I spent about 4 months living in the back of a car. So since then, I've always just been happy in my own bed. And can I dance? Absolutely not. However, that doesn't stop me from going out to dance clubs and trying to. Mr. Todd wants to know what genre of music I like most and do I play music. Well, I mentioned earlier I don't have a favorite genre. I like folky type stuff though, Acoustic guitar music mostly. And yeah, I do play acoustic guitar myself. Mostly folky stuff. I've been playing since I was 16. I'm not particularly talented at it, but I try. DL asks if I watch anime, what my favorites are, and if I read manga. I do watch quite a bit of anime, and I read a lot of manga. Some of my favorite anime series are Eden of the East, Naruto, Fooly Cooly, Full Metal Alchemist. Some anime movies I loved are Akira, Spirited Away, Vampire Hunter D. I'm really excited actually that Hayao Miyazaki is coming out of retirement to make another movie. I'll be first in line for that if I can. If I can see it in Japan, even better. Moving on, Arda Moss would like to know if I have ever taken the Myers-Briggs personality test. Yeah, I have. However, I took it when I was a freshman in college, so I really don't remember what type I was. All I really know is that I scored as an extrovert rather than an introvert. Being that I have no fear of public speaking, this didn't surprise me much. I personally don't put a lot of stock in tests like this, though. I don't like putting people in categories like this because it may influence their behavior if they put too much stock in the test. If they take it too seriously, they may let the results influence their behavior, and I'm not sure that's a really great idea. Zariah Terry would like to know, what did I want to be when I grew up? There actually were a lot of things. I think the thing that I probably identified with most, though, was being a writer. I began writing around the time I was 11 years old. It's been an everyday part of my life ever since, even though I don't do it professionally. I've wanted to be a magician, an actor, an FBI agent, and my favorite food definitely is still sushi. Carly would like to know what drove me to being a psychologist. My original goal in psychology was I wanted to work on the FBI and profile serial killers. Being that I have a family member who was actually murdered by a real serial killer might be what inspired me to do this. But it was way too heavy and depressing, and I didn't think I'd be that great at it. So I decided to instead become a psychologist and research suicide. I guess some may find that equally depressing, but it's not by a long shot. If I can help find measures to be put in place to reduce the suicide rate in high-risk areas, that would be great and very far from depressing. And Amy Ebarb says, I am one of her favorite narrators. Well, thank you so very much. And she wants to know if psychology is my profession, or if I just do YouTube videos. Psychology is my profession, but if I could just do YouTube videos, I probably would. At the level I am at right now, YouTube is not enough to support me, so I'm unable to do it full time. However, if my channel continues to grow, then I'd definitely consider it. She also wonders if I've ever been recognized by a listener. No, not yet. I actually have been recognized for other work, though. I used to write a pro wrestling column online, and attending a few WrestleMania weekend events one time, I was recognized by quite a few people. It was pretty neat. Kitty Baby and Dre Day would like to know if I have any pets other than cats. Well, the cats are technically my sister's cats, and she also has a collie named Buffy. I've never had my own dog, but I don't think I'd be a very good dog owner anyway. It's the same way I feel about having children. I don't think I'd be a good father, so that's the reason why I haven't had any children and don't really intend on having any in the future. If I were to have kids, I'd want to make sure that I'd be a great father to them before I even tried to do that. Further on down, Little Winter Flower wants to know if I'm a cat or a dog person. Well, actually, I'm a ferret person. Pictured on the slide is my last ferret, Sakura. She unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, and I haven't gotten a new ferret yet. But I know I will. They are just wonderful creatures, and if you've never had one, you could just have fun with them for hours and hours. Kitty Baby also wants to know if all of our cats are rescues. Yes, they are, although Ichigo did not come from a shelter like the others. He was found in the middle of the road during rush hour. I personally am okay with the amount of cats, but my sister would probably want more if she could have them. And what is my favorite movie franchise? My favorite movie franchise is probably A Nightmare on Elm Street, to answer that last question by Little Winter Flower. My good friend Brad Smith would like to know if I still want to go back to Waverly Hills Sanatorium this summer. Yes, I do, and I want to make a follow-up video to the one I previously made, which was pretty much just shot amateurishly by myself. But let's definitely plan to do this. I had such a great time the first time, and I'm sure the second time will be even better. Hopefully, maybe we can get a few more people to go this time. Now, here we have some YouTube-related questions. Marty Lauder would like to know what the creepiest story anyone has sent me was. In my video, 3 True Scary Stories about Abandoned Buildings, the second story in the video was called The Barn. By far, I find that to be the creepiest one anyone has ever sent me. I'm not going to say why, because if you haven't listened to it yet, I recommend that you do, and I don't want to spoil it. Jay Lee would like to know who inspired me to do this channel. I had a lot of inspiration from other narrators. King Spook was an early influence. Elfenlight Coda was one as well. I think the channel that I listened to that really inspired me, though, was a channel called Ares Leviathan that unfortunately has not been updated in a long time. I thought his production and his voice were great, and different than so many other narrators. I think it led me to believe that even though I don't sound like a horror narrator, I could still do this and be successful. Jose Cuevas wants to know if I plan on doing any live streams. I've done a few live streams on Hitchhiker's channel and have enjoyed those, although he seems to get the impression during the streams that I'm not enjoying myself. I really am, though. I have been wanting to do some live streams on my channel too, and I will do one really soon. Carmine M wants to know if I listen to other scary story narrators, and if so, who. Well, I listen to way too many to list them all. I can answer this combining it with Naomi Wadermuth's question of what made me want to start making scary story videos. When I first started listening to these, I got very addicted to them. As I'm sure others know, there are a lot of repeat stories out there, so it's sometimes hard if you listen to more than one narrator to find stories you haven't heard from another. So I decided to make a channel where every story I told was one that was not done on another channel. So although my stories are submitted by subscribers, and sometimes given to me through other means, I listen to as many other narrators as possible to make sure that the stories are not read anywhere else. So from B. Busta to Creeps McPasta to Mr. Nightmare to Mortis Media to Basement Horrors, I listen to tons and tons of narrators, and I like most of them. And Naomi, it is pretty difficult to keep up with making the videos when I also work full-time. That's why when I often tell others that I'm going to have a video released on a certain day, I often miss my schedule. I'm trying to work on that by having a weekly schedule, but I've been slightly off the past 2 weeks. I hope to correct that moving forward. And finally, the last question of the Q&A is from Austin McKenna. Why is my channel called Killer Orange Cat? Well, when I decided to make a horror channel, my username was simply my name, Jacob Fox. I wanted to establish a presence in the horror community before I began a channel, so I thought I needed to change the name. At the time, the avatar on my account was a picture of Ichigo, and he looked really ticked off. So the name Killer Orange Cat popped into my head. Strangely enough, I never intended to keep that name. It was only temporary, but it caught on and seems to be popular, and I've got nothing but positive feedback about it, so I kept it and probably will. Now, I want to thank everyone again for sending in questions and for supporting me and my channel. If I missed any questions, please let me know, and I will try to address them in the outro of a future video. I'm going to close by showing 2 slides. They have some amazingly nice compliments on them. Thank you again, everyone, and, as I've advised you before, please remember to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a killer orange cat might be hiding. Good night, everyone.